Hello. We are Group 4, and we're going to be talking about which operating system is the best for new developers. So, my name is JT Emerson, and I am going to argue that Windows operating system is the best operating system to use for new developers. The reasoning that I have behind this is number one, Windows is the most used operating system in the world. 87 users use Windows. And so that's one really great part of the fact that we have Windows. And another reason that I think that Windows is a really great operating system is that because it's so commonly used, it's really compatible with most programs, pretty much most IDEs and text editors, and developing software is extremely compatible with Windows because it's so common. Now, as far as startup developers go, most of the time, in my mind, startup developers are starting out, which means that they don't have a ton of money to spend. Windows is a cheap operating system. It's a lot cheaper than a lot of the other ones. And so that makes it really great and convenient for startup developers and beginning developers to be able to do what they do using Windows because it's cheap and it's compatible and they will be able to get done what they need to. Really great and convenient for startup developers and beginning developers to be able to do what they do using Windows because it's cheap and it's compatible and they will be able to get done what they need to.
My name is Rachel. I'm going to be arguing for Unix. The main reasons that I believe that Unix is the best is because it's free and it's runnable on almost any machine. You have a lot more control over the computer with Unix than you do with Mac or Windows, because Mac and Windows are icon and mouse based, so using them you can only activate what those operating systems allow you to, whereas with Unix you can do any of the things the operating system can do, which means there is the danger of being able to really mess things up. But if you know if you are learning or know what you're doing, you have that freedom to make the operating system more compatible with what you want to do, and it can be very powerful. And the customizable option is really helpful for new users because they can make sure that everything is how they will be able to understand it.
Okay, so my name is Reed Harston, and I'm going to argue that startup developers should use Macs with Mac OS. And the reason behind that is because, like, how Unix is completely customizable, Mac OS is actually built on Unix. And so everything Unix can do, you can actually do on Mac OS as well. And so all the customizability of it is still there, except it's built to work out of the box. It still has bugs, it still has, little features, but it has a lot of extra features that Unix doesn't have, and it's the only OS you can use to develop for iOS as well, so for iPhones and iPads, and Macs are the only computer in the world that can run OS X, Unix, and Windows all in the same box. And so that way you can run all of them on the same computer, and that way you can actually develop for anything. They are a little more expensive, but a good $1,000 MacBook Pro can let you do anything, and that's actually what I use, and I program on all three operating systems.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead and kind of debate here and discuss what we think about those.
Well, who wants to start? I kind of already know what I think, but...
Well, I can start off by... Oh, go ahead, Serene.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that the Mac operating system is great, but the price problem is definitely an issue. Speaking for myself, I know that a lot of students don't have the ability to do that unless they've already kind of gotten their head start. So if they're beginning developers, they probably don't have that head start in money. So it's probably not the best option.
That is also one of my biggest concerns with Mac, because we're talking about new and startup developers here. we can pretty much bet that most of them don't have a lot of money to spend on an operating system, and that kind of puts Mac as not really the best for startup developers, at least. So I agree with you, Serene, on that.
Now, I
Go
hope
ahead,
I'm
Reed.
jumping at the right spot because I've got a weird echo going on here where I hear everything 4 times. But the reason I argue for Mac, even with the price concern, is because my laptop I got for $500, and so it's still actually affordable if you get a used one. And the great thing about Macs is they're built so well that even my 4-year-old laptop can do everything the new ones can. A little slower, but it can do everything. And so the price concern, if you're really concerned about it, you can just get a used one, and you can install everything. And they have the best battery life out of laptops across the board. Windows, they generally are a little cheaper, but that's because they start cheaper. But if you really get a good Windows computer that's the same level as a Mac, you're pretty much spending as much anyway. Maybe a little less, but you're spending almost as much. Unix you can install on anything you build, so yeah, it is cheaper because it's free and you can build your own computer. But then you lack all the support of Windows, which has the higher user base, and OS X, which has the support for working on iPads and iPhones and stuff like that. And so, I acknowledge the price concern, but I do think that it's worth it, and you can get around that by getting a used computer. Working on iPads and iPhones and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree sort of on the price that you were saying, Reed. I still do think that I know that I just bought a computer just at the beginning of this semester, so just a couple months ago, and I was looking at least I needed a terabyte hard drive, at least 12 gigs of RAM, and the comparison, the Macs and the Windows were not even close in price as far as new.
Because you're looking at Apple's store, and that's the problem. If you look at Apple's store, then it will be expensive. But if you just get a used one, put it in yourself, it comes out a lot cheaper.
Yeah, and like you were saying with used, that makes a little sense. And then you made a really good point also, Reed, about Unix. I mean, Unix is great because it's so customizable, but the thing is that with Unix you don't get the support that you would get with Windows or Mac. I really do think that Windows is the best because, like I had mentioned before, it's extremely compatible, and yeah, it may not be so customizable as Unix is, but it is compatible with most everything because anyone who's developing any sort of software will make it compatible with Windows because they know that Windows is the most used operating system in the world among regular computer users and developers. And so I think it's affordable for new developers. What was that?
Sorry, it's weird echoes making it hard to know when you're actually talking. We have to be careful though when we think about most used because Windows is the most used desktop, which by consumers. So if you're targeting consumers, then yes, Windows is the most used. But Unix is the most used in general. Supercomputers, mainframes, all that, your internet hubs and all that. They'll sometimes use Windows, but I don't know exact figures, but I do believe that the majority of them are run some form of Unix or Linux because it's just so reliable and so customizable. It can do anything. So it's a toss, but I guess it kind of depends more on who your target is. Mac's the only one that can target iPads and iPhones. Linux can target best the web space and stuff like that, and Windows more for the desktop user.
Yeah. But then once again, we go back to thinking about the fact that we're talking about beginners here. We're not talking about people who already know what they're doing and are going to start building mobile apps and all other kinds of, applications. We're talking about beginning developers that are just starting out. So I think for beginners, Windows is adequate. They may need to upgrade later on, but as the beginning operating system, I think Windows would be a better option than Mac.
Yeah, I agree with Serene on that. And I also think that it beats Unix and Linux because while Unix is customizable, it doesn't have the support system that Windows has behind it. And also, once again, we're talking about new developers here. A lot of new developers won't even know all the customizations that they can make with Unix. I know that I don't. If I got a Unix operating system, I would have no clue what to do with it and how to customize it.
And that
And
would
so
actually get in your way. I've experienced that. When you don't know what you're doing, Unix can actually get in your way because it wants you to customize it. And so you take more time to set it up. So I prefer it because I already know what I'm doing, but I agree that for new developers, even though it's free, it can be hard to use. So
That's
I
a good
agree.
point.
yeah.
I agree with that. I think that honestly, I think the happy medium here is Windows because it's right in between on price. Mac is most expensive. Unix is free. Windows is right in between. For beginners, we don't, they don't need to have all the fancy stuff of Unix or Mac, so they can be right in the middle. I think that Windows is the happy medium.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it mostly depends on what they really want to do. But again, like you said, we're targeting beginners. When they start knowing more about what they want to do, then they can pick the one that works best for their targets. If they want to go to iPhone or something, if they want to go to whatever. And most newer users probably prefer programming for Android over iOS anyway. And Android you can program on any computer you want. So yeah, I guess for beginners it's probably fair to say Windows. Yeah, I'll just say that for more advanced people, they do usually upgrade to OS 10 or Linux. It's out there on the web. Just read about it. But for beginners, I can agree that Windows is probably a good start.
Yeah, and I mean, we also just need to think about that. We're not talking about like baby developers, like people that are just learning HTML here. I mean, even just getting knowledge, you've been a developer for at least 4 years when you're getting out of your undergrad. But still, even at that point, you still need cheap. You still have so much to learn, and I think that Windows, like we've said, is the best. So I feel like we all agree that Windows is the best operating system here. Is there any other disputations that anyone wanted to make on that?
No, I agree with what's been said. I think Windows is definitely the best choice for beginners.
Yeah, I'll back that regarding the arguments that have already been made. Just with the caveats of as they advance, anything can happen.
Right, I definitely agree with that. Though, that as they advance, they probably should upgrade to Mac. But when they're starting out, I think Windows is a fair place to start.
Definitely, yeah, I agree. I know that Mac and Linux is great customizable, and Mac is just it's more expensive, but that's for a reason. It's because it is better, and so.
Yeah. I still have a 17-year-old laptop that still works. A PowerBook G3 400 megahertz. It's so slow for today's stuff, but if you were to run, Word from 1999, it feels like a brand new thing. It's just wonderful. So yeah, that's why I still use them, because you get them once, they're more expensive up front, but then you just keep them forever. So yeah.
Yeah, and if there are, I mean, just as a side note, because I thought about it just now, if you're looking for Windows, I would definitely go for an Asus or an Asus, however you say it.
I think it's Asus.
They have the best hardware. Asus, yeah. They have the best hardware and the longest lasting computers, from what I can tell, from personal experience and other people and reviews online. Asus is, if you're looking for a PC, that's probably the best brand that you're gonna want to go for. But
yeah.
Beside the dispute. So if there's nothing further, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and we'll agree that Windows is the best operating system for beginning developers.
Okay. Well, it's great talking with y'all.
Great. Okay, we'll see you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, have a good night.